Early in the morning, on July 29th, 1883, two men were hanged off the Danville Bridge. Why were they hanged? Who were they? And what is the unique history of this bridge? 3 months before the men would be hanged, Jack Daniel, accompanied by Ryle Blocker, a neighbor of the Daniel family, approached the Potter farm. Blocker and Daniel had both been accused of stealing Potter's hogs and went to clear their names with Potter. Daniel's account of the encounter stated that once the man approached Potter's farm, Potter yelled that he'd shoot and started running for his rifle 60 yards away. Daniel then brought up his arm and shot Potter. Potter lived long enough for his wife to discover him and tell her what happened. He died only a couple hours later. In the days that followed, Jack Daniel, along with his brother Bud, hid out in the mountains in Garland County. Blocker, however, ended up turning himself into local sheriffs, reasoning that his punishment would be less severe. The brothers' bounty went up to $750 each, almost $1,800 in today's money. Early morning, on July 29th, a group of 15 men from Dardanelle and Danville stormed the jail where the two men that helped the Daniel brothers escape were detained. One man, by the name of Dr. John Flood, and the other, John Cocker.
Really, actually, what they were in jail for in the first place was just what they would call second-degree murder, which wasn't a punishment by death or hanging. But they were hung because they were connected along with the Daniel brothers in one form or other. John Coker was a good friend of the Daniels, and then Dr. John Flood, the reason he got hung, all he did was give them a supper one night and feed them.
The vigilantes took the two men and hung them off the Danville Bridge that same morning. It is not known who these men were exactly. It is suspected, however, that they were friends of the local sheriff and were upset after the ambush and killing of two sheriffs. The vigilantes left Ryle Blocker alone.
At the time, Blocker, pretty well, when he was put in jail, the ambush hadn't taken place yet. Although they did show up that early in the morning on that Sunday to hang three men. They had 3 ropes with them, but they threw one rope on the ground. Blocker was crying and praying for his life, and they told him to shut up. They weren't there to get him. They were after Coker and Dr. Flood.
Ryle was transferred to a Dardanelle jail, where he later escaped and fled Arkansas. The bridge that these two men were hanged off of dates back to 1880, when it was first constructed by the King Iron Bridge Company in Cleveland, Ohio. The bridge was ordered to be built by a judge in Danville in 1879 and was completed the following summer. The bridge was shipped by train to Russellville and was carried the rest of the way to Danville, then constructed on site. The concrete piers from the original bridge still stand today. The bridge was moved, however, in 1920 to make a switch between Danville and Alley when it was replaced by a bigger bridge. The bridge was later abandoned in the 50s and laid there for the next 60 years. Randall Haupt discovered the bridge in 2006.
First time I got any indication that there was a bridge that even looked like that, it was on the Danville city, at the courthouse. They have a monogram there, but it's on all their trucks and all the logo. And it shows the 3 mountains, the Danville Mountain, Nebo Mountain, Mount Magazine, and then it has this bridge that has a beautiful sunset there. And I didn't even know what kind of bridge it was, and I found out doing research it was called what they call a bowstring bridge because of the way it's built. It looks like a bow with a string on it.
Haupt began a campaign to get the bridge restored. Jerry Prendergraft, the city manager of Danville, got involved in the process with Haupt. In 2013, the bridge was moved from Mickle Switch to the Danville City Hall.
Well, after the bridge was moved from Danville down to Mickle Switch, it hadn't been in use in several years, and all the wood was gone off the bridge, and it was set in the bend of Pettigene River, and some of the pylon on the south side of the bridge was getting undermined from the water current traveling under the bridge, and so it was about to fall in Pettigene River, and since it was about the only historical thing left around here, we wanted to save the bridge for future generations to see and use. And it had a lot of historical significance for this area also, and so that got people interested in saving the bridge. We actually moved the bridge by Combs' house moving. Radcliffe volunteered to move the bridge, and he went down and looked at it. And I took him. He was moving a house here in town, and I went and talked to him about moving the bridge, and he said that he might could just do that for us. And so we went down and looked at it, and of course I told him, you know, we were on it was a low budget thing for us to move the bridge and try to restore it. So he said, well, I'll do my part. I'll volunteer to move the bridge for you. And he brought a 5-man crew, and it took 3 days to actually move the bridge and bring it up here to where it's at right now and download it onto the pylons where it's sitting right now. And we got best crane service out of Conway. They have some huge cranes, and so best crane service out of Conway came. I talked to them on the phone, and they came down and looked at it, and they said that they would do it for what it would cost them, which I think they charged me $3,500 to come up here or come up there and lift it off the river and set it on the Combs House moving rig. Of course, we had volunteers from the county. Our county judge and the county road crew built us a road going into it, and they furnished the materials.
The local newspaper, which started publishing articles about the bridge's history, got many community members interested in the bridge.
I started the ball rolling. I wrote a history on the bridge, did extensive research on it. I wanted something done with it, so I went to Mary and David Fisher at the Yale County Record in Danville, and they were kind enough to print that story. And then from there, the city of Danville took an interest in it. Jerry Pendergraft, the city manager, and I got the support of the Mayor Pfeiffer, who was the mayor at the time. We got it put on the National Historic Register. The next thing you know, all these volunteers just started showing up that could do everything, and so that's what made it possible. And then we had got the great-great-grandson of the man, that Zenas King, that designed these bridges and built them, donated $2,500, and from there we got all these donations in, a lot of great people that just basically worked just for the love of the history of the bridge.
The bridge's restoration was completed on November 12, 2015. It took almost 10 years for help to finally get it restored. The revived bridge now rests beside the Danville City Hall and is part of the local walking trail. Arkansas's history is being abandoned. It is important as Arkansans to band together to preserve our history. The Danville Bridge is only one step in this pursuit.